Hello and welcome back to Pedagogically Speaking. I'm your host, Alana Huffer, and today we're going to talk about what it's like to be a newer teacher. Maybe you're in the first 6 years of teaching, or maybe you've been working part-time for a bit longer, and you are walking into your classroom every morning, and every morning you are feeling behind. Maybe your lessons don't look like the ones that you see on Pinterest. Your classroom doesn't look like the ones on Instagram. And somehow everyone else seems calm, organized, and they look like they're thriving. But you're feeling more like you're drowning. You're spending hours planning lessons and you think that they're flopping. You're wondering if you're not good at this. But here's the thing that you might not know: that teacher that's across the hall, struggling. The teacher with those beautiful bulletin boards, struggling. The veteran teacher who always looks like they have it all together, also very much struggling. So today's episode is for you if you feel like everyone else has got it going on and you're the only one that doesn't. And we're going to be talking today with Alex, honestly, about what teaching actually looks like behind the classroom door. So, once again, this is Pedagogically Speaking, the podcast where we talk about teaching the way it actually is: messy, complicated, absolutely exhausting, and hopefully for all of us, incredibly meaningful. Today's episode, I think, is what a lot of early career teachers need to hear, that none of us really do have it figured out, and we're all just taking it day by day. Okay, so Alex, thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So there is definitely, I think, I don't know, I think you've been teaching longer than I have. I've only been in this for like 16 years over 3 different countries, quite frankly. So I always do feel like I'm starting from the beginning again. But do you think there is an illusion about teaching? Do you think that there are teachers, even just currently at university, that have been wanting to be teachers for so long that maybe don't really know what's going on and how teaching actually is?
I mean, I've been teaching less than you actually. I've
But
only
you've
been
been teaching
teaching,
full time, and I haven't been.
yes. So I've been teaching full time for 9 years. I walked into a contract that carried me through the year, and then I had another contract that carried me another year, and I've been continuing for the last 7. So, I I don't really want to be like I'm like a new teacher, but I'm also not like super veteran either. In my experience and my kind of, I guess, field of working has been within French immersion, teaching grades 3 to 8. And like those younger years was definitely outside of my practicum experience and my teaching year. Like I'm even remembering back to my teaching year and younger, in a different province, uh, totally happy, didn't have a family, didn't have kids, just kind of coming in. And I was totally happy doing like the 6 a.m. wake ups at the school from like 7 a.m. until 6 p.m., like every day, working at least 8 hours on the weekends. But that was during my practicum. Uh, and so I felt like it was kind of to be expected.
Right.
Look at like when I first started my first contract, I'm high school trained, so grade 7 to grade 12 in Ontario. And when it transferred here, when I moved here 13 years ago, and got my teaching license, it's K to 12. But 6 weeks into the school year, the classroom still didn't have a teacher. And when I applied
Wow.
for a TOC position and ended up in a grade 3, 4 classroom. And it was a wake up call. I thought I was ready. I had a 1 year old at home, not yet, just a 1 year old at home. And I knew it was going to be challenging. I knew it was going to be good, but I was so excited. I was keen. I was really looking forward to the work. It's what I've been wanting to do for a while.
Yeah.
I still remember conversations with my spouse. Him like, "Are you gonna come home at a reasonable hour tonight?" And I'm thinking like 5:30 is kind of reasonable, but like when you think the school day ends at 2:40, 2:50, 3 o'clock, that's
Exactly.
2, 3 hours sometimes past that time. And when I'd be showing up at 7 a.m. and the school day doesn't start, so I mean, like I kind of expected that. And I remember my first week in to the job, and my administrator comes up to me and asks, like, "Oh, how are things doing?" I was like, "I have my job, like, I'm secure, you can't fire me, right?" And he's like, "No, no, no, no."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Okay, good, because 'cause I'm drowning. I'm absolutely drowning." And I was very fortunate to work with colleagues, then, that were extremely supportive around, they were just so happy to have a French immersion teacher. Um, and so they were sharing resources, and, providing support around, like, managing student behaviors, because grade 3s and grade 4s behave vastly different than grade 8s, grade 9s, grade
Yes,
10s. And
they
so, like,
sure do.
trying to navigate the, "Oh my gosh, what happened at recess? This did? What did you do?" And then talking about, like, whatever the other kid did. I was like, "No, no, no, I wanna know what you did. I wanna support you." And, like, just the constant it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't go back to that level. I am now teaching at a grade 8, and so I, appreciate those older students, but it's still
Yeah,
a challenge. Like, 8 years in, and I've been teaching the same grade for 5, so you would think I would have, like, but you're constantly pulling together new materials. You have different students in your class, that require different needs, that, different supports. You have different administrators that come through. You have different teams that you're working with, and so it's almost like you're kind of starting a little bit new.
yeah,
Um, and I see a lot of new teachers that kind of come through our particular school because it's not necessarily a school uh, that draws long-term teachers, because the demographics and the neighborhood, the location of our school. I remember when I got my continuing contract there, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're going to work there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm really excited." It was like it's my top choice. And they're like, "Oh." I was like, "What's
what's
wrong?
going
What's
yeah,
wrong? What am I getting myself into?" And that kind of sometimes is the same vibe we get at times from, like, new teachers coming in, and they're not necessarily prepared to navigate that. And, those that do, we want them to keep coming back. Um, but there's a drain that comes on us as well. So we do see, like, a lot of turnover at times. Um, and we often, especially within French immersion, in contracts, we see brand new teachers, um, like, brand new. I mean, I didn't have a single day of TOCing under my belt. I had no idea what else was out there, or what teaching would be like really here in BC. I TOC'd one day, and it was in the classroom that I was taking over, and then I've not been I've not been anywhere else.
yeah,
And so when I started, I was at, like, the step 0, because your steps and
yes,
pay are based on that. And so when I think about, like, what I was being paid at the time, the amount of work that I was doing, I felt like like a strong disconnect.
definitely. I
Um,
hated step 0. I'm glad it's been gone for a few years now, but man, I started on step 0 too. It's ridiculous.
it was awful. And I mean, I'm a category 5, which means that I have, like, my 4-year undergrad, and then I have my teacher's college. And so I stepped into 5, but if for some people teaching elementary, they can just go right into their bachelor's of education, and it's only a 4-year. So they're on step 4, which is
Right,
very
of
different.
course.
And so
Yes,
it was even less. And I think about especially French immersion teachers, because generally, if you start teaching, you're not coming into a contract right away. Um, I mean, unless you're in some
generally.
smaller communities, I'm assuming, but, like, where I'm working, it's a larger district, one of the larger ones in the province. Um, and, like, I would have expected to TOC some more, and I
Yeah,
didn't. And so when you're
exactly.
working full time, you're on that step ladder, and it's hard, for the amount of work that goes into it with what you're taking home after. And, to see new teachers there doing that, um, is a little bit better now.
Breaking.
You're right, like, there's no step 0, and those teachers now, there are some agreements that allow them to go up a step if they take a contract, that they move
Right.
up a couple steps to provide a little bit of that buffer zone.
It's still not great though, like, just,
Still not
like,
great, no.
most places like, we have, like, category, what, 4, 5, 5 plus 6, and then there's still 10 steps, right? Steps 1 to 10, and most places have, like, a 4 to 6 step grid, like, it's so excessive because you're doing the exact same work as a teacher that's been there for 10 years anyways, and in reality, you're working harder because you don't have a decade's worth of resources and, like, knowledge that you're
No,
backed up in.
and I would add that, I mean, if I was teaching an English class, an English classroom, I would have more experience. So I wouldn't be at step 0 or step 1
Yeah,
or whatever it is at the bottom there taking a contract, because those are going to other teachers who have, been TOC and have that more seniority there. I mean, got a continuing contract on 172 days in the district.
right.
Like, that's
Astounding.
that's nothing. Um,
Yeah.
and then I'm teaching French immersion, so when we're looking at, like, resources even, to support our classrooms, that the textbooks that we have access to or the materials that we have access to are typically the ones that they're used in the English track program, and then, they're translated to French, so they're intended for Francophone schools or French as a first language, classroom, which French immersion is not.
No.
And we have misconceptions that we deal with that our classes are really easy because, there's like no behavior issues or there's no learning differences or needs and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
there's a bit of an elitism that's kind of tied around that, and I would agree. Like, to an extent, I would say, you know what? Yes, I do, especially when I look at my counterparts in the English program where I work. Absolutely, we have difference in
It's
the needs and the
different, yeah.
supports that we have. We often will get students that are designated or diagnosed or supported or whatever it might be later,
Yes.
because they're not being provided the interventions or the support access earlier. Oftentimes, they're being discouraged from continuing within the program because it's like, well, we can't provide this ed psych assessment, because they need to have
Absolutely.
1 year of English instruction. We can't do this testing because they're in French immersion. We can't provide these
Yeah,
supports because we don't have French speaking LSTs, or EAs that support our classrooms,
yeah,
and we kind of get stuck. And it's like, as a parent, I totally understand that too, because I face the same problems, navigating the system for my child, and the frustration that I feel around that can get like
intense.
intense
Yeah.
for sure.
No,
So
it's a huge issue. I think people don't understand that because I think historically maybe there were, yeah, like, oh, your child isn't doing well. I think we should try the English track and things like that, which we don't do anymore. But then, in the English track, you have English speaking EAs, you have English speaking learning support teachers. We don't have, or if we do, not enough, French speaking EAs. We don't have, or not enough, French speaking learning support teachers, and they're not widely available. In the district, I don't know of a district French learning support teacher that goes to schools to help. Like, whereas the school districts have that for English. So, really, there is not a lot of supports for French immersion at all. Going back to what you're talking about as a at your contract in the elementary school, you talked about having a 1-year-old at home and you were working like 7 a.m. You'd get to school, which means you were leaving earlier than that. And you were hoping to be home by 5:30. And then even just without the fact that you were most likely making less than $40,000 a year, from what we know about working now, like, do you think one, like, do you look at that and think that that was maybe like a toxic work habit? Did you feel like other people expected that from you, or did you just expect that from yourself? Because when I started at, quite frankly, my favorite school that I've ever worked at, I also would try to get to work. I think I would just get to work for 7:30, but I walked because we're a single car. I've always tried to be a single car household. And so I would walk, so I'd leave the house just before 7 to get to school by 7:30. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure what I did because in New Zealand, the school didn't start until 9. Like, it went 9 to 3. And I do think I was there just because other people were there, and I wanted other people to know that I was there, and then I could get work done. I was, like, ahead of, like, I had like half my term done by probably week 1 because I was there so early and I would stay late And I did eventually, like, having a kid for me helped that. I didn't do that anymore, but I don't really know if it benefited me at all.
Um, I would say that, I mean, I usually was one of the first people in the building, so, like, the idea of having others and the pressure from others to do that, I think it was more, I hate sitting in traffic, um, and so it's like I would probably leave the house about 7, maybe quarter to 6 or something like that, and I would drop my son off at daycare at the time, and then kind of, like, loop around and make my way in, um, and then I'd pretty much work until it was like I had to leave to go and pick him up from care, and then kind of come home at the same time. So some of it was like timing with that. I also tried to avoid like high traffic times. And I know that for myself at that moment, because I was more high school focused, and so all of my like education was based around like lesson planning for older students. I mean, I planned my first 2 weeks, the first weekend before, like I worked on the Friday to get to know my class with the TOC that was in for them, with them since the start of the year. And then I worked that weekend to kind of plan my first 2 weeks to give myself like, okay, I can do this. So I planned out my first 2 weeks. And then my first day that I had my students, we're doing the activities. And my first day that I had planned took me 2 weeks to teach. So, there was, like,
Wow.
a bit of a
Yeah.
learning curve
Okay.
in terms of, like, trying to pull myself around, "Okay, how do I do this? I have to rethink this." So, there was a lot of, like, relearning, and then, I was never taught to teach to read, and we were still within that piece, so I was having to do some learning around that. I had done some volunteer work, with a French immersion teacher doing kind of like a running records idea, so I had some background around that and working with kids and supporting their learning that way, so I kinda, like, leaned on that piece. I leaned on I had some really fabulous coworkers and colleagues that I had then. I had an amazing, admin team that I am when I went to my and I was like, "I'm drowning." And it's like, "What can I do?" And I was like, literally, "Can you give me like a week? Pay me for a week. I'll plan this and then I'll come back and teach." And he's like, "Well, we can't do that, but how about I give you like an afternoon or like a morning or something like that?" And so we planned it around a day where I had some prep time in the afternoon. So I basically only had my class for like maybe an hour that day because I had the morning, and then my kids went to music for their for my prep coverage really, and then I picked them up from there, and we had like I think yeah it was less than an hour. So that timing piece kind of worked out so that I was able to get a fair amount done. I worked with our teacher librarian. I worked with the colleagues across the hall and beside me. I had some friends that taught at other schools that shared their resources. But it's also hard because when you share those resources, it's kind of aligned with how that teacher will bring things into the classroom.
Yes.
And so I can't always use it the same way. I took part of pretty much anything that the district was offering for support. I did a math series with Nikki Lynham because I love math, but
Fantastic.
I was like, how do I teach this? And like it's taught differently. And I remember being up on the board showing the kids like carrying the one, and it's like, but you're not carrying the one, you're carrying the tens of that place value. And
Yeah.
remember sitting there going like, oh, oh, that's like it was really weird at that point in my life being like, I was always just carry the one. But so like having to teach the concepts
Yeah.
and the reasons why behind it to make
Break it
sense to
down.
kids made sense for me. Um,
That's
and
cool.
it was great because my families that I had for my students, they were very supportive as well. Um, I was fortunate to stay at the school a second year.
Yeah.
I just moved up a grade, so like very happy about that.
Nice.
And I was able to carry some of those families with me, and then, um, even when I went and moved into, like, a higher grade when I got my continuing contract, that, I stayed within the same family as school, so I grew with them and they grew with me, and, that
That's
first class,
lovely.
they're graduating this year, and I'm kinda like,
Mm.
"Wow, I'm old."
That's so nice, though.
But I think to go back to your point around, like, I don't think anyone was kind of pushing it on me. I think some of it was absolutely my own pressure of wanting to make sure that I did right by the profession, that um, I wasn't really looking for like you were talking about like Pinterest ready, and it's like, yeah, it's great. I made a lot of posts about these Pinterest things, and I have tabs that were open on my computer, or on my tablet, or my phone, or whatever, and like it all looks pretty and nice. And I was maybe a little bit more focused towards that at the start, and I've really let a lot of that go because honestly, it can look pretty, but it doesn't mean it holds substance.
Exactly. I love that.
Um,
It can look pretty, but it doesn't mean it holds substance. That's exactly right. And, like, where are we putting our time and energy into, right? That's cool.
yeah, and I think as I've gone forward more, and finding that balance and, dealing with that kind of like imposter syndrome of being like, really, I'm teaching children this. Like, I'm supposed to have it together. Like this perception of like, you know, I'm supposed to be pulled together. I have it all figured out. I have all the answers, and really recognizing that I don't. Um, and that year to year it changes. I would say that the year that I got my continuing contract was the year that we dealt with and everything shut down.
Yeah.
And coming back, I think that year, while there was challenges that we faced, and like I hated the word pivot. My God, that could be erased from my vocabulary. Um, you know, I felt because we didn't have extracurricular activities,
Yeah.
and I firmly believe in those extracurricular activities. Um, the idea around learning happens within the classroom, that it's within school, is something that I've been working to let go of, uh, because learning is every day, all the time,
You
every
never
moment
stop.
that you breathe, it never stops. And so, this concept that kids come to school and this is where they learn, yes, it's where they learn parts, some things, but sometimes what they're learning is not necessarily the curriculum. It's not the math. It's not the science concept. It's how to interact with each other in a kind way, how to navigate challenging situations, how to figure out how to learn and take in information, what works for them. Um, but I found like, yeah, that COVID year was great because we didn't have those extracurricular activities. And
And that
so,
was my first year because we've taught together. So, like, that yeah, that was my first year at the same school. Okay.
yeah. And I I found, like, the best work-life balance there. I took way more work home though too, so it's like wouldn't be at the school maybe as long, but I would take more home with me, and sometimes I would get it done, sometimes my work would just kinda travel home with me
Yeah.
to make it a little trip because it needed a change of scenery, and then it would come back to the school with me.
Yeah, like a kid's apple during the day. It's just going for a little vacation, just a little road trip, ends up right back there again.
Exactly, and so
It's so funny because it's like the best laid plans, like, I'm like, "I will totally get this done." Da-da-da. This is back when, like, it was papers, like, I feel like a lot of the stuff I do now is online, but, like, I'd be bringing papers back and forth on my bicycle and being like, this I didn't do anything."
yeah, and it's like, why am I doing this? I actually have those conversations with myself where I'm packing all this stuff up and I'm looking at going like, Alex, you're seriously not going to do this week, and you're going to get home and you're going to want to spend time with your kid. You're going to want to crash or and sleep, or you know what, have that movie night. And so I'm getting better at leaving more at work
Good.
and having it keep there. Um, and boundaries in terms of like when I'm replying to emails, when I'm even checking my emails.
Yeah. Don't do
Um,
it. As soon as you leave work, you don't open up the emails again until you get back to work.
Exactly, and sometimes if I have to use my computer for work purposes outside of work, I don't open the little app thing to check or anything like that because it's like it can get you stuck into a hole.
No, it's
Um,
brutal. It's brutal, if especially if you get, like, an email you don't wanna read, and then you're like you read it, and it just ruins your whole weekend, it's terrible. And
yeah,
I speak from experience, like, I did get that email once, and it's taught me never to do it, and I used to say it all the time, like, "Leave, da, 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 you're not at work, don't read your emails, blah, blah, blah," and then it actually happened to me, and I just don't do it anymore. I'm like,
well,
"Can't."
sometimes it's easier said than done. You almost have to have that experience where it's like, yeah, nope, this is why we're not supposed to do it. Like I don't even have it on my phone. I know some people have it on their
Oh.
phone, so they get like I don't even put it on my phone because it's like, nope. Um, And so, yeah, so I guess even too thinking back like to new teachers when they're coming in, um, I think teaching is harder since COVID. Um, and I don't know if I can like qualify it necessarily or quantify it in a way that makes sense. I think like the world is different. The political climate is different. The expectations are different. Um, the behaviors and students and the needs are different. The shift sometimes even too that the ministry might take where it's like, well, we're inclusive classrooms, like we're providing universal supports for students, which I'm like, great, that works, but we still have students, that they can't read at grade level or they struggle with numeracy. And where are the supports to do that? And like you can't have that fully relied upon with the teacher in the classroom. And so not being staffed or funded appropriately to be able to provide those supports for students. And then wondering why this kid is, you know, blowing up. Like students, like they'll leave the classroom. Like, I don't want to do this, so I'm going to behave in a certain way, which is then going to get me sent to the office. But then don't have to do it. So is it really like that's going into a different topic, I think. But um,
No, but
it,
it's fair. Like, I mean, behavior does like the person who's doing the behavior is getting something out of that behavior, right? Like behavior is communication.
yeah, and I
So
feel like that's not what's being taught or shared at like the practicum, like the education, teaching you how to be a teacher kind
definitely
of thing. I don't think that that's covered. I
agree.
like the reality of it or the reality of the time it takes. And you know what, when you're making lesson plans, like the first few will take you a little bit longer, but you'll develop a system for yourself that, you can run through it. Like most of my lesson plans are sticky notes, to be honest. Um,
That's the best way to
just
do it.
just to allow myself the ability to move things around.
Yeah.
Um, the best laid plans, I could sit there and spend all this time to plan my entire year out. But you know what? I might have a group of students that whatever it is that I'm doing, it's not working. So I have to go back to the drawing board, which then I feel like wastes all that time that I did putting together this year-long plan.
Yep.
So
100%. I think that is one of the things like that beginning to teachers don't understand is that, you're spending all this time creating like the perfect lesson plan, maybe because you had to hand in your lesson plans to your practicum mentor or your teacher mentor, whatever it is. But those lesson plans will like if you don't understand how to be flexible with your lesson plan, because what happens if you get to school and the tech doesn't work or your computer doesn't work? How many times have I gotten to school there's no Wi-Fi? Do you know what I mean? Or the students come in completely dysregulated, and so you need to spend extra time like co-regulating with them and like having a soft start, or maybe they're super excited. Like there's just so many different things, and I think one of the best reasons not to do a big lesson plan is just also because sometimes the students will be like, "Well, I don't understand," or like they'll see it in a different way, and they'll ask you a question, and it will completely derail the lesson. But actually, they're asking it because they're curious, and if they're curious, then they're ready to learn. They want to learn, and they will learn independently. So, like, how can you help facilitate that as well, right?
and that's you can't necessarily teach that,
No,
and
but
I
you
would
need.
say I play to my strengths because I do come with a lot of creativity and I can, switch and adjust and kind of I I get excited about some of like those
Yeah,
little novel kind of things that come up and whatever. And so I sometimes totally get our class sidetracked while I'm teaching because
totally.
we just go off on something and then it's like, wait, we got to come back. What were we doing?
Yeah,
And I know for some colleagues and close friends of mine that doesn't quite work for them. They need to have a little bit more of that structured. So I'm a big advocate in the idea of like, you do what works for you and find what works for you. And so, like, yeah, sticky note teaching works for me. Sticky note
totally.
teaching does not work for, a front
Everyone.
kind of thing. It won't. Um, I think the other thing that, because I have had some student teachers as well come through, and I think sometimes my biggest goal with them is to like take down the veil, like
Yes,
not to send them out there completely disillusioned with what the profession is like and being like, no, it's hard. It's challenging. It's absolutely rewarding, and um, I feel nostalgic sometimes looking back on some years, and I could probably sit there and think with my current class or something like that, and it's like every year it's like, "Oh my gosh, they're just frustrating me so much." But then the end of the year, and I'm like, "Oh, they're just like these little like I don't want to
Angels.
lose them. They're so like we built this thing this year."
Yeah.
Like it's exhausting, and so
Mm,
trying to pace ourselves, you always hear it's like, we're not sprinting, we're running a marathon, so like pace yourself. The school year, how it runs, it's like
yeah.
you get started and then all of a sudden you're writing learning updates again and
Ugh,
it's
yeah.
winter break and then all of a sudden you come back and it's a very short term second term after winter break before March break. It's very short. So you're like cramming all this stuff in. And then you come back from spring break and then it's like the rush to the end. Like it feels like it's in September. You just think, I have all this time. And then you're looking back and be like, where did it all go? Like I feel
Yeah.
like there's so much.
I find it difficult to find the rhythm of a school year personally. Like, I think,
I
like,
forget.
it's
I forget
taken
the rhythm.
me so long, I think, to figure it out, and it still does. I still haven't figured it out because in term 1, so, like, this school year was 16 weeks long, and it was a slog, and it was really I actually found it challenging, but then I don't know if this was a mistake or if it just ended up being this way for me this year, but term 2 is only 10 weeks, and I was like, "Man, you get through that first week, you're in single digits, like, you're on the home stretch." And this has been I mean, it's definitely been a really hard term. I wanna say it's been the hardest term actually of my career. I don't know if that's accurate, but it definitely feels truthful now.
Like I don't actually think this year's my hardest year. I've had harder years for sure. But like when you're going through it almost that it's hard, like you forget the
Hope
timing of the
that's what it
year or like
is. I don't know. I'm struggling right now with, like I think the beauty of middle school is you got 6, 7, 8, that's it. And depending on how many learning support teachers are, how, like, case management is structured, and admin, I think there's always something that you're like, "I can get through this." I felt that when I was at middle school for 4 years. Is there something you think that teachers pretend is easy that actually is really, really hard? Like, do you think there are teachers that are pretending things are easy that when you're like, "This is one of the hardest things I do." Oh, like maybe you run the musical. No, but, like, I mean, you can talk about that too, but do you think there's something that teachers pretend is easy that actually isn't?
sometimes wonder about the teachers that say it's easier that, like I really wonder sometimes it's like, are you just saying this because it's like that's what it is? Or like are you really struggling underneath that, but you're just not wanting to share that out because maybe like you're a private person or like that's not like you can really separate that like this is a job, this is work.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we look at teaching or the profession as this kind of an idea of a calling. Because it's a calling, you could take a lot more
Yeah, a lot
on,
more
or
hits.
like some of that can be guilted onto you. Um, I feel like sometimes even too, if we complain about the job, others like, well, you chose the profession, and it's kind of like,
Harsh.
well, yes, I did, and the thing is that the teaching when I was teaching, even 5 years ago, 6 years ago, is not the same teaching that I'm doing now. It's
Nope.
it's different, harder, and I find that when we're gaslit or denied the ability to speak up and to share how hard it is and what we're
Yeah.
challenged with, um, that it's often like, well, maybe you're not cut out for the job, or maybe you should do less. Like I've looked at that sometimes where I'm sitting there and it's like I have times of the year for sure. Like so, you want to talk about the musical? Yes, May is absolutely a gong show. The week of production. And like the musical for us is outside the timetable, like it's
All volunteer
non-curricular.
time.
It's a club. Like I run it we run it as a club. And, I'm at the school and I leave my house. I probably leave my house about 6:30 in the morning and I don't come home until 10:30 at night
Yeah.
for a good week.
At least. I
Um
And you're there on Saturdays. Like, I've worked with you. You're
I'm not
announcing
anymore.
this.
I'm not anymore.
Sure. Sure, sure.
I would say that I was more because having the family at home, I found it very distracting actually to work from home or to do my work at home. Like I couldn't get as much done because I wasn't as focused. There was more interruptions. There was an ability to be like, well, I don't really have to do this right now. I'll do this later. But like it just kind of gets added to the pile. So I would go in and get work done. We do run rehearsals on Sundays, not every Sunday, but on some Sundays for a
Not
couple
every
hours.
Sunday. Not
Not
the
every
statutory
Sunday.
holiday Sundays.
No, no. Well, the cast sometimes gave me grief for family. I would get grief for putting. I had a rehearsal because I don't always look at the calendar, um, and they're like, "Well, that's Mother's Day or something like that," and I'm like, "I'm a
Remember
mother,
that year.
I'm still here."
I'm a
You celebrate
mother,
me?
and I'm here with your kids. Oh my god, I
Um,
remember that.
so like we don't put it on Mother's Day now too, just because then it's easier. And I just don't have to deal with that. Because that's the other thing. It's like this is all done from the side of my desk. It's all extra, and I love doing it because when I was in school, it's what brought me joy too. And I love seeing them within that performance. I love seeing that it's like it doesn't ever feel like we're gonna get there. It's never gonna pull together, and I'm just kind of like, oh wait, it's whatever it's gonna be, hands up in the air, and then every year they surprise me, and I shouldn't be surprised that they surprise me every year.
No, it's
Um,
nice. It's good to get surprised. It's good to
I
be
think
proven wrong.
it does, and what I like about it too is we do a performance for our feeder schools, so the kids that will be coming to our school the next year are invited to come and sit in the audience for our dress rehearsal essentially. And they get excited then too to come to middle school to be able to participate. Um, and it's a fun time for them. The cast get a chance to perform for former classmates, perhaps if they were in split class or something like that, and seeing them on stage, and so they get excited about that. And um, so that part's always fun. And I would say like families are very appreciative, I think, of the work that my colleagues and friends do to be able to um, pull this together. Like, some years we've had more help than others, and like more people, more staff to
Yeah.
lend a hand. So spreading that out has been helpful. And um, I work with a colleague now who teaches um, our drama exploratory, and being like, okay, how can we find a balance so that we're not taking up too much of our time here, and like individually pieced, right? Like, she'll take one rehearsal, I'll take another. We're both together there on Sundays. Um, we talk and pull things together. I've had another colleague who's come in and friend who stepped in working through the backstage crew to be able to navigate that. But like there's still all the logistics of it, and every year we're getting, a few more. Like, we started with about 38 on our cast, and this year I think we have like uh 57,
It's wild.
right? And that doesn't include our backstage crew, which is also growing, which is lovely. But
And
it's
a
a lot of
lot.
time, and needing to make sure that we have our support from our admin to be able to do that because, our performance for the elementary schools is during the day. We're gonna need release time so that we can go. Um, we have support from our admin team in helping us buy the materials and stuff because I don't have a school credit card, so I can't
Yeah.
just go and buy
There's no
things and
budget.
navigate them, which adds a layer of complication for sure. But um, supporting us in doing those and taking orders and whatnot. And helping us at one point with tickets before we switched to a different ticketing system.
Oh, nice.
Um, so yeah, running our concessions so that we have that and we bring in some more money there. It's nice, and for me, it's like that's one part that I love about the job because what the kids are learning there helps them within the classroom as well too.
Totally. No, it's amazing.
And the kid that maybe struggles with reading, will get a line. Like, I've seen so much growth from students that have started in grade 6 and then where they're performing solos now in grade 8. And you're just sitting there
Amazing.
being like, where else do you get that?
Yeah.
Um, and like it's through programs like this, but it's also through like our music programs at the school. and our bands, our strings, our choir. And choir is one of the most, accessible music forms that we can provide students. And do you have a voice, right? You don't
Yep,
need instruments, you
no,
know. We can teach you how to keep time. We can teach you how to sing in a group. We can help build your confidence. So you don't have to sing by yourself in a choir, unless you want to solo. But like, you don't have to,
exactly,
right?
but they're
Your
cutting
voice
it
is
short.
there, and it supports them in like team building and um, working together within your group.
Music has been the best thing for my daughter because she was struggling, had maybe she had 2 rough years, um, at school. Grades 2 and 3 for her were not great. We don't know how to fix this or what to do, and so we just didn't do anything, and we kind of gambled with grade 4, and it's been great. But one of the things that really helped her was taking piano because she all of a sudden learns I can be successful if I practice. And I don't need to be good at something right away. And practicing actually does make a difference. And that's the kind of stuff like we're lucky that we can get her music lessons outside of school. There's no strings for this for at my daughter's school. There's no like I would take her to school early if there was strings, but our school doesn't have that option. Her school doesn't have that option. Her school also has one music teacher there 1 day a week. So she doesn't get music because they have to divide it up. So certain grades get 1 day a week of music for one term.
And I feel like every kid should have music.
Every kid should have music. It helps you problem solve. It helps you learn how to read. Like it helps us so much, but
It's a
no,
language,
and
like, when you think about it, it's its own language as well. It's an expressive
100%.
form to be able to work through, I grew up playing the piano, and so I remember, my dad saying, he knew how I was feeling based on how I was playing a song. So I could play the same song, and then just depending on what my mood was like, I would play it differently. And so it
That's
would be
cool.
like a cue for him to be like, "Oh, maybe I should check in or something," or, um,
It's nice.
like that piece. And it's a way to kind of process those pieces that, we can't necessarily. And I think about like younger children as well too, that they don't have the vocabulary, they don't have the awareness perhaps or the understanding to be like, what is all of this going on in me? And music is that way to kind of express that. They still might not be able to name the anger, the frustration, the uncertainty, the fear, the worry, whatever it is. They still might not be able to express it, but they know they feel better a little bit after,
Yeah.
you know.
No, you're absolutely right. All right, getting back into the teaching part of it. Do you think, or what are the invisible parts of teaching that people don't see, whether it's beginning teachers, practicum students, or people outside of the schools? What are the invisible parts of teaching that nobody sees or understands?
The meeting.
The meetings? Well, I mean, even like you said, musical, like you're volunteering all the time.
Yeah, well, there's that. There's the volunteering. I think people see that more because they can see the outside. I don't think they necessarily know how much time, right, goes into that piece. And I've been trying to find ways to streamline getting in the information. I think next year we're going to switch to like a Google form or something like that, so that I don't have to be taking this paper form and transferring it over into a document
Yeah.
for myself. That it's all just kind of like sent there, and then I can format it then there or something like that. I think, yeah, a lot of people think like, well, teaching is, going up, teaching the kids how to read, write, count, literacy skills,
That's
about
becoming a
social
smaller
and
and
science.
smaller part of teaching.
Really, like, I think like that part, and that is so small compared to like, the time I spent like responding to emails or setting up parent meetings or meeting with learning support teachers or admin or, this IEP meeting here, that IEP meeting there, filling out documentation forms because their child is being assessed for ADHD or
Crossing.
whatever, they don't know, and they're just being like, here's the form. And some of those forms, like, I mean, I timed myself once, and I thought I thought they didn't really take me that long, but like one of the forms, it took me like 26 minutes
Yeah.
to get through that one form. So I would say like, those forms, they take time. And I would say that it was pretty quick to get through that that particular one. So, like, filling out those forms to do that, the photocopying, um, like, the the one job where I'm just like, you can't just go in the morning when the bell rings, sort yourself out to figure out what you're gonna teach that day, teach the kids, because you have to have everything prepared and ready to go before you even bring the kids in. So when the bell rings, like, I have to do all my work to prep before that bell rings.
For work. You have to do all of the work prep before work even starts. Like, most people go to their jobs to work. We have to get the work done before our jobs start.
Yes.
It's
It's almost
wild.
like if you imagine, like, somebody working in an office and they have meetings all day, but they have to prepare for those meetings. So that time, but, which is technically our prep time, which we get nowhere near enough.
Nope.
And, it's prep times where sometimes I'm like, "Alex, why didn't you just use your prep time for that?" And I'm like, "Because I was disassociating because I'm trying to process just the sheer amount of noise and volume
Yeah.
that comes at me all day." Like, it's like a soundtrack of, like, natter, 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 and so I like just in quiet, but I can't always do that because it's like, well, that's where I need to go to the bathroom, or I need to,
Yep.
run photocopies, or I need to call a parent, or I need to have a meeting for this, or we have committees at lunch, or we have, and oftentimes, like, if you don't participate in those committees or if you don't show up and stuff like that, your voice isn't heard. You're not, and then you get things done to you, right? Where at least this is the venue sometimes to have those things. And, the staff meetings and team leader and um, like just all of the extra stuff that we don't always think about when we think about teaching, um, and how much time it can take. And yeah,
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. Like, there's just so much work.
and
I
documenting things. That's the other thing.
God.
Is
Yeah,
just,
there's so
needing to
much.
have documentation for this, and I'm like, if we're experiencing these challenges in this classroom because, the student is struggling, why do I have to document for X amount of time and show X, Y, and Z before we're already putting in some of those supports? Because I also have, 20 at least 22 other kids. Grade 8s, we only have 24 max with one that has at least one that has a designation, right? Which all classrooms really have someone, and if they don't have someone on paper, they generally have those that are not, because not everyone seeks the designation because they wonder, like, what's the purpose, what's the point?
Also, not
um
everyone's able to, right? Like, if you're at a school and you only get however many psych eds done a year, and it depends on where everyone falls, and you can't wait lists are 2 to 3 years long
you
for
know
it, and then
and then I think, like, if because with a triage like that, you're really looking at those that are like 3 to 4 grade levels behind or more, right? Like, they are so far, and I have to think about, like, what is that child's experience of school then, of going in constantly into a day and um you know, feeling less than or not feeling successful, and having that tide, which is right around the age of, like, that um, the self-awareness and the core sense of self, like who they are as their values and how others perceive them and who they then internalize for themselves. Like, not, I guess, going to specifics or anything, but, like, having to sit there with your kid at the end of the day being like, I'm not smart, as if, the process of learning isn't the goal. It's
exactly.
having to have the answer and being correct, being proficient, and, kind of pushing back against that constantly of, the kids that are chasing those extendings, um, and not happy with my answer when I tell them, if I have to tell you how to extend, then you're not extending. Like, um, yeah, right? Like, or wanting to be extending in everything and then having a kid that's emerging and being crushed by it. And it's like, it's just a spot of where you're at currently within your learning, and your learning journey is separate from others. But you can see how they've internalized that into their self concept, and um, how they feel that they're perceived, and, not always being able to escape that. and
Yeah.
like I think like when they're not being because it's like I'm fortunate, I'm very privileged, I'll say, because I saw a problem with my own child, like pretty much grade one. We had an absolutely horrendous kindergarten year. We won't even talk about that. But, grade one, I saw a problem. I expressed that problem to the teacher. The teacher said they saw the problem in the classroom as well, like in the letter reversals. And, there was some speaking speech stuff going on, not being able to tell the difference between card, cart, and car,
Uh-huh.
and then my child expressing more in like a heightened, escalated feeling, right? Like a frustration that builds up, low tolerance with that. Um, things. And, he was getting learning reading support interventions. He's had it since grade one, still has it now. Um, and then grade two, still seeing the same problems, some letter reversals, number reversals, even like when he's writing down and I'm telling him something like, writing it flipped. Like, so there's just stuff there that I'm like, I'm concerned about this. I would like to look about this. And then, getting an assessment. The doctor's psychiatrist's recommendation is asking for a psych ed to be done. Now, he's in school. We can't because he needs to have at least 1 year of English instruction, at grade three at the earliest kind of thing. And I'm kind of like, okay, great. So he goes into grade three. And I'm like, okay, this is the year. I'd like to put him on the list because I also know the list is going to take time. I want to, well, no, he has to have like 1 year of English instruction. I'm like, well, that's this year, isn't it? Like, can you not just well, no, that's grade four. And I'm like, my child coming home and having, self-esteem issues around, not being good enough, not being smart, being made fun of because, he got an emerging or a developing on something and another kid got proficient or extending, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
and having to have those, and it's great because I'm a teacher, I can have that conversation with him around the language that we can use and supporting him and navigating that. And I was just like so pissed off and so frustrated that I was like, okay, so I go ahead and put myself on wait list to do it privately and I get it privately. A lot of families I know aren't there. And we were told, maybe French immersion is not a good place for him. I was like, I'm sorry, stop. Maybe you need to let go of your parental dream for them. And it's like, I'm sorry, stop. Yeah, that it's, or maybe I can try again bringing him back in, you know, um, in late for him. But I'm like, it's already a
No,
lottery system. Like it's also a lottery system there. There's no guarantee that I'll be able to get him into late from then. He might have been a better candidate at that point. I don't know. I won't know because we got in when we did.
exactly.
And the thing is that you are supposed to support him and you should be providing those supports and not try, but because he was the behavior piece. And I've seen, some of his previous classmates that, were also within like similar profiles as he was that aren't in the program anymore.
And that's the thing, like, when people think they can gatekeep language, right? Like, that they're the
Yep.
gatekeepers of language, and it's like, no, no, no. Like, there's no evidence, at least in this case, that French is the reason for any of this. This is a learning challenge. So these behaviors would be around no matter what language instruction
But
was
I
in, so we'll be keeping in French.
But I think it's more because they can't provide the supports in English or in French. They don't have the capacity, right? And the research and the literature that I've seen around learning disabilities, is that the earlier you can provide the interventions, the better.
Yes,
The second piece is that you shouldn't have to wait for the diagnosis to be able to start providing supports.
exactly.
But oftentimes our supports are triaged around designations because there's so few people to provide those supports. Like there's there's not enough people. The other thing that I'm aware of is that a learning disability is going to show up in both languages. And so if they were to start supporting, if they didn't have a learning support teacher in French, I was fortunate that they did. But if they didn't, providing the support in the English language would be able to transfer his skills to the French one. So it
Yes.
doesn't matter what language the supports are being provided in, it's that there are supports being provided in earlier. And it's not to say that 5 years down the road that he won't have a learning disability, because that's not how it works. But the gap between what he knows and what his peers know at that same age group is smaller.